Good morning. Welcome to Coffee with Pegasus. We've been talking about astral for a while. Well, we stepped out of that to enter the next chapter of the book, and that's going to be the human elements. Many of us in the craft, we're used to calling the earth elements: spirit, earth, air, fire, and water, in whatever sequence you choose to call them. Well, let's talk about the elements of the human: spirit, psychological, emotional, physical, and sexual. We'll touch on each one of these terms in this chapter. Each of these terms make us who we are because of our past, our thought processes, our sociological programming, meaning child raising, and towards the end of it, under the element of sexual, we'll also talk about the three personalities of sexual. Those three personalities are child, man or woman, and animal. Now, when I speak of man or woman, I actually speak of the physical man or the physical woman, not the masculine and the feminine. Society spends great time in programming us that a man should be a man. Yeah, we are the leader of the house. And they spend great time in programming the woman that she should be meek and mild and consenting and barefoot and pregnant, and yeah, well, piss on all that. Onward and upward. Spirit is the spirit of the self. Whether or not you enjoy or like the spirit of the self and how you are, as you understand the spirit, the core, the soul, the main personality of the human being itself, not the society personality, whether you're good or bad or nice or mean or what have you, but that is your actual spirit. As you become to know your spirit, then you become more comfortable with the rest of your elements. Spirit also deals with spirituality, whether or not you're comfortable with your spirituality. Whether you're Christian, Jew, agnostic, pagan, Muslim, what have you, it doesn't matter. As long as you are comfortable with spiritual architecture and belief, or quote religion, end quote, as you choose to call it. If you're comfortable with that and you're comfortable with spirit, which most of us are not in the beginning, then we can move on. When we start talking about the emotional self, we're talking about emotions: happy, sad, and anger. These are three very different emotions that are offset by the psychological self, as well as the physical self and the sexual self. The spiritual self has little to do with emotion, although in retrospect, emotion does have quite a bit to do with the spiritual self. If your emotions are all cattywampus and chaotic, and you're slightly bipolar, whether it's an environmental bipolar or a chemical bipolar, offsets the way that you feel and perceive your spiritual self. So as you learn how to deal with your emotions and understand the difference between your happy, sad, or anger emotions, then you become more in control of the self. The psychological self has to do with where your psyche is. This is controlled a lot by what types of abuse you went through at a younger age, what types of abuse you went through at the hands of a spouse, or are going through at the hands of your environmental situation. Every human being on the face of this planet has to deal, or does deal at some point in their life, some form of abuse. Now, I'm not talking about the severe cases, though those are extremely important. I'm actually talking about the little browbeating that goes on at the hands of some spouses or some mates in a household. The constant continuous badgering and questioning about why you're breathing, why are you living, why are you doing this. They're making you question your existence. That is a very bad form of abuse that can have major impact on the psyche, on the psychological self. Are you on antidepressants? Have you been to a psychologist or a psychiatrist that's not a pill pusher, but someone that is capable of sitting and listening to your issue and reaching back and finding out the cause of that issue, and not saying, oh, right, well, you're manic depressive, take this drug and call me later if you don't commit suicide. Feel free to question your psychologist or your psychiatrist about your medication. If they show that you're chemically imbalanced, rock on. But also push them to find out the cause or the original trigger to that psychological issue. So we move on to physical. This is a big one. This is one of the biggest problems in the world today, because society has programmed us that we're supposed to look like the models in the magazines, that women are supposed to look like the women in Playboy and Hustler and these shows that you see on TV where they're walking down aisles trying to sell clothing and bathing suits that won't fit a peanut, much less an actual real full-figured woman in today or any day's time. Men especially have a problem with the physical self. Me, for example, when I reached 50, I suddenly stopped going around outside without a t-shirt. Well, I'm about 40 pounds overweight, so I'm extremely self-conscious about that. But I'm not the only one that has that issue. More people today have a major problem with the physical self, most especially women when you get pregnant. You think that you're ugly, you're fat, you're programmed that when you put on excess fat to be able to help feed the child, that's unappealing, it's unsexy. Personally, I think pregnant women are one of the most sexiest creatures there are to the goddess. No, I don't want to have another child. One is enough. Thank you. But when women start to age and they start to grow older, they do tend to lose that girlish shape. It's just something that happens. There's nothing anybody can do about it. I do recommend that you do keep yourself in shape as much as you can. And when you change your physical appearance, or if you're not happy with your physical body, only you can change it. Binging and purging, bulimia and anorexia, they're not going to fix the problem. They're only going to exacerbate the situation and cause major issues more with the other four elements. Now, that being said, and I know I've gone through this rather quick because it is kind of a quick topic, really, you can go back and rewind and listen to certain aspects. But when you move on to the sexual self, this is one of the most abused, mistreated, and misunderstood element of the entire human body. The human body, the human itself, is an animal at the core. We were originally designed at the core to hunt, to survive, to procreate, to reproduce, and to grow as a species. Everything else in the, quote, human self is programmed by modern society. The sexual self has been programmed for thousands of years by certain sociological fundamentalists that sex is evil, sex is bad, sex is dirty, and sex should be controlled by the church. For thousands of years, people were taught that sex is only good for procreating and reproducing children. I have known so many people that lived such unhappy lives because the only time they ever had a sexual interaction with their mate was to reproduce children. And I've met people with multiple kids because they did not believe in birth control. Okay, fine, that's a personal thing. But don't have 15 kids if you can't support them. don't not get on birth control just because the preacher tells you not to. Birth control is a personal, individual decision that must be made as a family. So when you see yourself in a sexual darkness or in a sexual situation where you've been highly abused, step back, take a look at yourself, seek help if you can't handle it yourself. Now let's talk about the three personalities of the sexual element: the child, the human, and the animal. The child is the one that took the abuse. The child is the one that makes you cower or cow down in a corner instead of embracing and enjoying the sexual self. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and screw every knothole there is or climb on every post that's hanging around. But I'm saying enjoy and embrace the sexual tantric self and enjoy it for what it is. Moving on to the human, man/woman. The human is the person that wants the romance, the love, the respect, the individual embrace of a mate or a loved one. A hug from someone you care about. Hugs are one of the most wonderful things there is in sexuality. Now, I do not believe that a hug is sex. We're not even going to get into what my perception of sex is. That's not important. But a hug is part of the sexuality of a human being, to embrace another and to share that feeling of love and joy. Many people cannot even hug another human being because they're in their personal space. That is okay, but it really does cause issues with your other four elements. Now, this being said, what about the animal? The animal is the one that throws caution to the wind. The animal is the one that says, oh no, I want that, I like that, I'm going for that at all costs. Granted, the animal does need to be kept in check, because, well, there's a time for everything, isn't there? So when you're watching this video, and you may stop it to rewind it or re-listen to something, play it back slow. Go one element at a time. Check out the three personalities of sexuality. And if you have issues or you have problems, either myself or the leader of your coven, group, grove, whatever you're in, talk to your local spiritual counselors, talk to your local counselors, and discuss each one of the elements. If they tell you they have nothing to do with anything, or, oh, that's not important, just take your medication, give me my $100 an hour and call me later, maybe you need to find a new counselor, teacher, or whatever. These elements are very important to you. They're very important to you as an individual. Embrace them, learn about them, and I look forward to making future videos in our book, and always keep it going forward. If you have to step back, sit down, look at what's going on, and then get back up and start moving forward. I wish you well in your future healing, and have a great day.